Ahoy, mateys! Welcome to Podcasts of the Caribbean, a podcast covering the world of Pirates of the Caribbean, from the theme parks to the movies and everything in between. My name is Justin Helmer, and I will be your host on this voyage through the Caribbean. It'd be too late to alter course now, mateys. Welcome back to Podcasts of the Caribbean. This is a very special episode because today we are celebrating the Curse of the Black Pearl's 20th anniversary. Pirates of the Caribbean, The Curse of the Black Pearl, released on July 9th, 2003. Of course, this was the very first Pirates movie, and at that time we had no idea the crazy, huge, sprawling franchise that would be birthed by the success of this film. On the very first episode of this podcast, I talked about the state of pirate movies in the world of cinema at this time, and they were hugely expensive, and all of them ended up being box office bombs. So when Ted Elliott and Terry Rossio approached Disney for the first time about their Pirates idea, it was during the mid-1990s. They were hot off the success of Walt Disney Animation Studios' Aladdin, which they had written a script for. So Ted and Terry wanted to modernize pirate movies in a way that was never possible before. They wanted to take things like cursed treasure and supernatural myths and legends and actually put them into the film instead of just talking about them or mentioning them in the film. So Ted and Terry ended up realizing that the Pirates of the Caribbean attraction at Disneyland actually had everything that they were looking for. To quote Ted, he said, "We don't have to now make up a whole bunch. There's the cursed treasure and the moving skeletons, and we thought, oh my god, it's Jason and the Argonauts, it's pirates, it's everything you could possibly want." Unfortunately, when they presented their idea to Disney, they weren't really interested. So the pirate idea rested in development for years until 2000, when new Disney leadership had come in. So this new team had started to look at their theme park attractions, and they noticed the value that they could bring to the movie screen. So in this time period, we got movies like the Country Bears movie, the Tower of Terror movie that was made for television, Mission to Mars movie, and not counting other theme park movies that were also in development at this time, like the Eddie Murphy Haunted Mansion movie, which would also release in 2003. So throughout the first half of the year 2000, Walt Disney Studios executives Brigham Taylor, Josh Harmon, and Michael Haynes created a rough story treatment for a Pirates of the Caribbean movie, and here is that summary of that initial version of the film. So the story centered around Will, who was a prison guard who dreamt of being a member of the governor's elite guard. Will ends up getting humiliated by Captain Defoe, who is the captain of the guard, in front of the governor and his daughter Elizabeth. After Elizabeth boards a ship destined for the mainland, she is kidnapped by the notorious pirate Captain Blackheart and held for ransom. The governor sends Captain Defoe to pay the ransom, but Defoe is secretly in league with Blackheart and the pirates, and he plans to use the situation to unseat the governor. Will then has to save Elizabeth himself, but he first makes the acquaintance of Jack, an imprisoned member of Blackheart's crew. At the end of the story, Blackheart is defeated, Captain Defoe is imprisoned, and Will and Elizabeth end up together. Jack, on the other hand, becomes the new captain of the guard. And that was the rough draft version of Pirates of the Caribbean. So after creating this rough story, Brigham Taylor presented the idea to Nina Jacobson, who is president of the Buena Vista Motion Pictures Group. She quickly saw the great potential a Pirates of the Caribbean film had, and had Brigham and his team clean up their treatment before giving the green light for the film. What's funny about this is that even though Ted Elliott and Terry Rossio were at the top of the list for the choice in writers, they were unavailable at the time and had no idea that the pirate idea was making waves at Disney. So in the summer of 2001, Disney had brought on Jay Walpert, who wrote The Count of Monte Cristo for Touchstone Pictures, which is a Disney-owned brand, and to immerse themselves into the world of Pirates of the Caribbean, Jay Walpert and Brigham Taylor took a walking tour of the attraction with Disney Imagineer legends Francis Xavier ex Atencio and Tony Baxter. Jay Walpert then used what he learned from the ride to tie the movie and the ride together. Another cool aspect of Jay Walpert's story drafts were the cameo appearances by real pirates, Henry Morgan and Anne Bonny. This was actually something that they planned for the Pirates of the Caribbean ride originally, but those ideas were scrapped in favor of the original story. Stuart Beattie then joined the writing team at the end of 2001 and did a rewrite of the script, this time changing some character names. So Captain Defoe ended up becoming Lieutenant Norrington, but he was still an evil and villainous character. Norrington had a thirst for power and wanted to rule the Caribbean, and he tried to accomplish that by marrying the governor's daughter Elizabeth. After she refuses to marry him, Norrington would then join the pirates and their captain, who had been renamed Captain Wraith. Also in this draft came the birth of the surnames Swan and Sparrow for the characters Elizabeth and Jack, respectively. So with the script developing, Nina Jacobson and Dick Cook, the chairman of the Walt Disney Studios, sent a script to none other than Jerry Bruckheimer, and Jerry read the script, which at the time was still a pretty stereotypical pirate film. And Jerry was not very interested at this point, so he told them to let him and his team develop some ideas before getting back to Disney. After a while, Jerry Bruckheimer and his team signed on to Pirates of the Caribbean, which was still missing a crucial element script-wise. And finally, Ted Elliott and Terry Rossio got the call to join the swashbuckling pirate film that they had the idea for all those years ago. During the 10 years between their initial pitch and them being brought onto Pirates, Ted and Terry had written for the film The Mask of Zorro, as well as the iconic animated DreamWorks film Shrek. Chad Oman and Mark Stenson, who were executives at Bruckheimer Films, called Ted and Terry with the pitch for Pirates of the Caribbean. So Mark and Chad told them, look, we've got something. It's a little weird, but we're making this movie. You know the Disneyland ride, Pirates of the Caribbean? And Ted responded, stop right there. Terry and I have an approach for this material. If you like the approach, we will absolutely write this movie. But if you don't like the approach, then we'll have to find something else to work on together because this is the only approach we want to write. And of course, this approach added the element the movie was sorely lacking, and that was to literalize the supernatural, in the words of Ted Elliott. This idea to include the cursed on the treasure immediately differentiated Pirates of the Caribbean from every other pirate movie ever made. Ted and Terry believed that honoring the original attraction would be the film's main strength, because it was of course harboring the name of the ride, Pirates of the Caribbean, as its title. Ted and Terry proposed their idea of the cursed treasure and the pirates who were cursed by it, pirates who would become skeletons under the moonlight, and this is when everything began to click. After 4 weeks of daily story meetings, the whole crew, Jerry Bruckheimer, Chad Oman, Mike Stenson, Ted Elliott, and Terry Rossio, pitched the new idea to Nina Jacobson. The studio was equally excited for Pirates of the Caribbean, and the supernatural idea was more feasible than ever thanks to the constantly changing new world of CGI and digital effects. Now, when it came to choosing a director for the film, Jerry Bruckheimer had an up-and-coming director named Gore Verbinski in mind. What Jerry liked about Gore was the fact that he could give movies humor and edge at the same time, which is what elevated Gore to the top of the list. When Gore got the call to do Pirates of the Caribbean, he was interested immediately. He grew up watching old pirate movies like Captain Blood and The Crimson Pirate, and thought this would be a great chance to bring something new to the genre. Jerry Bruckheimer said, his enthusiasm is like a little kid's. He loves to work with actors, and actors love him. We were fortunate because he really was the best director for this project. Gore signed on immediately after hearing about the curse element of the movie, and he knew this would be something that would breathe new life into the dying pirate genre. After Gore signed on, he began drafting up storyboards from Ted and Terry's script outline, and from these sessions birthed many iconic things: Jack Sparrow's arrival on a sinking boat, a monkey turning into a skeleton, a pirate with a wooden eye, skeleton pirates walking on the ocean floor, and more. Ted and Terry began writing the first screenplay for the movie, which took place around March 2002. And in this first screenplay, the basic story of what we know today was formed. They settled on cursed Aztec gold that would propel each element of the story. The original pirate captain, who was known as Captain Blackheart and later Captain Wraith, became Captain Hector Barbossa. Barbossa would be driven by finding the Aztec gold and would maroon Captain Jack Sparrow and steal his ship, the Black Pearl, to find the treasure. Will Thornton, yes, you heard me right, would be renamed to Will Turner. Thornton was Will's surname in previous drafts of the script, but was changed to Turner, which references the turn, tying all three main characters together with bird-related surnames. Something that hadn't been developed before Ted and Terry's screenplay, however, was the character of Jack Sparrow, but that would all change very soon. Jerry Bruckheimer had only one actor in mind to play the role of Captain Jack Sparrow, and that was none other than Johnny Depp. But at first, Johnny was skeptical and told Jerry he'd think about it. This was also at the time when Johnny had his first child, Lily Rose, and was looking for new kinds of movies to expand his career into. Gore Verbinski was also a big fan of getting Johnny into the movie, and after some consideration, Johnny joined the cast as Captain Jack Sparrow. Johnny was fascinated after reading Ted and Terry's screenplay and was excited to build the character of Jack Sparrow. The early tests and sessions of the Jack Sparrow character were kept exclusively between Johnny Depp and Gore Verbinski until just a few weeks before filming. So Brigham Taylor and Nina Jacobson on the first day got their first look at the character Johnny had created. Brigham Taylor said, "That was the first thing we had to adjust to. Johnny's bohemian gutter rat look. He had the hair, the dreads, the beard, the whole bit, and he had nearly every tooth capped in gold by a real dentist. We asked ourselves, can we get away with this? He's not going to be the dashing, debonair Errol Flynn character wooing women. He's going to be this scraggly character." Many Disney executives tried to find out how they could dial Jack Sparrow back, but it was eventually Dick Cook who made the call. Johnny's answer to this call was that he'd lose some of the gold teeth, but that was it. They were even more surprised when the first dailies came in after shooting began. Nina Jacobson ended up giving Johnny a call and asked him to dial it down a little more. Johnny responded to her by saying, "I'd really appreciate it if you trust me on this. Come down here and I'll walk you through it because I have no interest in changing what I'm doing." After Johnny Depp's casting, the crew searched for the rest of the cast. This is one of those instances where the crew got insanely lucky with what talent they hired. It seemed like the bar got higher and higher with every actor that joined the film. It really is one of those lightning in a bottle scenarios where the cast literally couldn't be any better than they were. To play Captain Hector Barbossa, they hired Jeffrey Rush. Jeffrey had won an Academy Award a few years prior for the film Shine, and honestly, I don't believe there could have been a better casting for this character. And speaking of the character, Jeffrey was ready to fully inhabit Barbossa by giving him some great backstory. Jeffrey said that Barbossa had to be a nasty and dirty fighter because he probably had a sword on his belt from the age of 13 and just knew how to use it, and you can see this in Barbossa's fighting style in the movie. For Will Turner, however, the crew went after a younger actor. Jerry Bruckheimer worked with Orlando Bloom on the film Black Hawk Down, and during a promotional tour for the movie, Jerry brought up the prospect of playing Will Turner to Orlando. Orlando was very interested in the character and the film overall, and joined the cast at the best time possible. This is because the Lord of the Rings films were creating buzz, with Fellowship of the Ring, the first movie, releasing in 2001. If you aren't familiar, Orlando played the elf Legolas Greenleaf in those movies, and they skyrocketed his stardom to the next level. And when it came to casting Elizabeth Swann, the crew was looking for more than just a damsel in distress. Jerry Bruckheimer said, "Obviously we were looking for a beautiful young woman, but beauty alone was not enough. Like many of the characters in this film, Elizabeth is complex, and what you see on the surface isn't everything. It was imperative that the actress understood the many facets of her character, not just the love story between Elizabeth and Will." The actress they ended up hiring to play Elizabeth was Keira Knightley, a 17-year-old who had been recently gaining notoriety. If you remember, she had appeared in Star Wars The Phantom Menace as Queen Amidala's handmaiden, and she also appeared in a TV movie for The Wonderful World of Disney on ABC in 2001 called Princess of Thieves, which is a movie where Keira played the daughter of Robin Hood. But her stardom began after the release of the 2002 film Bend It Like Beckham. They could not have casted a better actress to play Elizabeth, and the fact that she was only 17 years old when The Curse of the Black Pearl was filmed still blows my mind to this day. Rounding out the rest of the cast was Jonathan Pryce as Elizabeth's father, Governor Weatherby Swan, who was a well-known Welsh actor. Jack Davenport, who had starred in shows on the BBC, was cast as James Norrington, which was another perfect choice if you ask me. Lee Ehrenberg and Mackenzie Crook were both cast as Pintel and Ragetti, the best duo on the Seven Seas. And in addition to those talented people, we also had Giles New and Angus Barnett, who played Murtagh and Mulroy, respectively. Now that things were taking shape, it was time to start visualizing the world of Pirates of the Caribbean. Gore Verbinski started doing storyboards of many of the scenes in the script with production designer Brian Morris. While they did that, veteran creature designer Mark McCreary, better known as Crash McCreary, started working on how the cursed pirates would look after they turned into skeletons. You may recognize this guy's name because he also designed the look of Davy Jones and the crew of the Flying Dutchman for Dead Man's Chest. Concept art was also being done by the many talented artists on the film, including but not limited to Miles Tevis, James Ward Burkett, Simon Merton, and Derek Gogol. To design the look of the pirates while they were still alive, Penny Rose was brought on as the costume designer. When designing these costumes, Gore Verbinski was very strict on what he wanted. No hooks for hands or eye patches everywhere, is what he said. I didn't want to see trick-or-treat belts or striped shirts. In reading about that time period, it's clear that people didn't live very long. They were essentially rotting away. Ships leaked, and there was nothing in the way of medical attention, and not a lot of personal hygiene. Gore wanted to evoke the reality of the time period, that being during the 18th century. So when you look at the costumes in the film, they are very accurate to what was worn during that time period. The pirates in this film wear clothes that are torn apart, they're dirty, they make it seem like it's all they could get their hands on. And that was the reality of this time period, and that's what Gore Verbinski and costume designer Penny Rose wanted to capture. When the costumes are being created, this was also when Johnny Depp was able to fully create the character of Jack Sparrow during costume fittings. When Gore Verbinski first saw Johnny in the costume, he immediately said, "Yeah, that's it." When production really began on the film, work on the various sets began. One of the most elaborate sets in the movie was the treasure cave on Isla de Muerta. This set was built on Soundstage 2 at the Disney Studios in Burbank, and according to executive producer Bruce Hendricks, it was one of the largest sets built on a stage in Hollywood history at the time. The set consisted of the main treasure cave, as well as intricate pathways and rocky openings to make it feel like a full-blown cavern. It took about 5 months to build the set, and it contained 300,000 gallons of water once it was fully filled. After the cave was finished, the crew now had to fill it with treasure. And Gore Verbinski wanted a lot of gold and wanted all kinds of different items to fill the cave. Anything the pirates would be able to sell or look expensive to them would be things they would plunder. The production team painted hundreds of cubic feet of rock to make it look like gold and filled with hundreds of yards of beads. The team traveled to all kinds of prop houses and bought all sorts of props that looked like things pirates would steal. All of this was dumped into the cave to give it a certain feel, and when you see the set in the film, it really is absolutely amazing. I mean, it's jaw-droppingly fantastic. When it came to Port Royal, the streets and locations of the town were built on European Street at the Universal Studios backlot in Hollywood, and close by on the backlot, the Court of Miracles set from the 1923 Hunchback of Notre Dame movie was dressed to look like Tortuga. Another portion of Tortuga was built on Mexican Street, which is also close to the backlot, and when it came to the set for Fort Charles, the set was built on the site of what used to be the Marineland theme park in Ranchos Palos Verdes, California. Nearby the Fort Charles set was also home to the sets for the interiors and exteriors of the Governor's Mansion and the Bay of Port Royal. Those were all the locations shot in Hollywood, but you can't make a movie called Pirates of the Caribbean and not shoot it in the Caribbean. But before they decided on shooting in the Caribbean, the team thought about shooting the movie off the coast of Long Beach, California, to save money and time, but they quickly realized that would not work. And a great decision, really. They even considered places such as Australia and Thailand before agreeing to shoot in the Caribbean. No other location they could have subbed in for the Caribbean would have the same water, the same sand, and they wanted to stay true to the name of the movie. As the team scouted islands in the Caribbean, they quickly realized it would be much harder to find a location than they realized. Gore Verbinski said, "It's amazing when you scout a film like this, how quickly you realize the world is insanely overpopulated. You go out looking for a lush, deep-water, cul-de-sac-shaped bay, one that doesn't have a hotel sitting right in the middle of your shot. There aren't any unpopulated islands out there anymore. They just don't exist." But the search finally came to an end when the team found the island of St. Vincent. The crew built facades of Port Royal and built piers and docks to make it feel like it was a real, thriving place. The island also had a cul-de-sac-shaped cove named Wallaby Bay. To shoot other scenes, the crew found nearby islands in the Grenadines to shoot on. Specifically, the scenes on Rum Runner's Isle were shot on the outer islands of the Grenadines. But the real challenge of filming in the Caribbean was shooting on the open sea. Gore Verbinski said, "It's all true what they say about shooting in water. Everything that can go wrong will go wrong." When they were filming on the ships, as soon as the boat would be in position, the wind would change or the sun would be in a different direction and it would take a while to reset. Even the color of the sky was an issue because, if one scene had a clear blue sky, the next one had to have the same. It can't be a cloudy sky in the next shot. And because they were shooting in the Caribbean, it could be either really sunny one moment or it could rain the next minute and be clear again in a few minutes. Jeffrey Rush talked about the annoyance of shooting on the water, and he said, "You would be waiting to do a really substantial, meaty, dialogue-driven scene on the deck, and then the wind would change and the smoke would blow in the wrong direction, and you would have to wait for 7 boats to come around. It was painstaking, as it needs to be." For this movie, there are 3 main ships: the Black Pearl, the Dauntless, and the Interceptor. The Black Pearl and the Dauntless were built partially on barges so they could shoot the ships in open sea, and then the ships would be completed digitally afterward with visual effects. But for the Interceptor, they used a real ship, and that was a ship called the Lady Washington, which was a replica of the real Lady Washington that sailed in the late 18th century. And because this was a real ship, they had to sail it from Long Beach, California, all the way down to the Caribbean. But before they sailed it down, the production team spent around 49 days making the ship look like the Interceptor. And after the ship was ready, the crew of the Lady Washington started their journey down to St. Vincent on December 3rd, 2002. However, on December 30th, the ship encountered rough seas and the jib of the ship actually snapped off, so they had to sail back to Cartagena, Colombia to repair the ship. But they finally reached St. Vincent on January 12th, 2003, finishing a 40-day journey. The aspect of this movie that sets it apart from every other pirate film before it was the digital effects. A movie like this would not have been possible without the advancement of digital effects during that time. The biggest factor of visual effects in this movie are, of course, the skeleton pirates, but other forms of visual effects in this movie are enhancing the ships. As I said before, the ships were built on barges so they could be finished digitally, but they were also scenes shot with miniature ships. The crew built miniatures of all 3 of the ships, the Black Pearl, the Dauntless, and the Interceptor, for specific scenes of the movie, because it would be way easier filming these miniatures for landscape shots than using the whole ship. The miniature of the Interceptor was actually used a lot. So during the scene where the Interceptor sails through the storm on the way to Isla de Muerta, the shots of the ship crashing into the waves were shot in a tank with the miniature. So of course, sailing a real ship in a real storm would have been the most unsafe thing to do. So they created this elaborate tank with wave makers. There was rain machines and wind machines to make it look as real as possible. And then if you remember in the movie, the Interceptor also explodes after the fight with the Black Pearl, and this was also done with the miniature. So when you see the Interceptor explode in the movie, that is an actual ship exploding. It's just a small ship, of course, but they only had one chance to blow this miniature ship up, so they had to get it right. Thankfully, they did, and it looks absolutely incredible when you see it explode in the movie. That is not CGI, it's an actual ship exploding. But when it came to the skeleton pirates, though, it was a lot more work. The first step in this was to create the unique look of each and every cursed pirate, and these first concepts were done by Aaron McBride, who also worked on Pirates 2 and 3, and then the effects team at Industrial Light and Magic created headshots of each pirate to see how they would look as humans versus skeletons. One of the big things was to make sure the pirates were still recognizable while they're skeletons, so each pirate had to have some defining feature that could be taken into the skeleton form. For instance, Rigetti has his wooden eye, Jacoby has a smoking beard, and so on. And while developing the texture of the decaying flesh, they actually used the texture of jerky to give them a fleshy look. And so while they were filming, they shot performance references of the scenes. So they would shoot the scene with the actual actors doing their motions, and then they would shoot a version that was empty. So this gave the effects team the ability to match the movements of the digital skeleton with the actual actor's movements and erased the real actor to insert the skeleton version. So if you think about this gets very odd when the other characters are fighting the cursed pirates. So for instance, at the end of the movie, during the fight on the Dauntless, they first shot the scene with the pirates and the Navy fighting for reference, and then they shot it with just the Navy fighting. So you can imagine how weird that must be. And speaking of fight scenes, let's talk about the sword fights in this movie. One of the reasons this movie has such great sword fights is because of the legend that is Bob Anderson. Bob started his career in 1952 and was the stunt double for Errol Flynn himself, who, if you don't know, was a huge star back in the day for all kinds of adventure movies and pirate movies included. This guy is a legend, and that's why when you look at the fights like the blacksmith duel or Jack fighting Barbossa on Isla de Muerta, they're just so beautiful to watch and overall just amazing sword fights. The sword fights were all rehearsed beforehand so the actors knew what was going on before actually performing them on set while shooting. And Johnny Depp actually was interested in this because he learned the sword fights before he actually finalized the character of Jack Sparrow. So he found it very interesting to incorporate the character of Jack into the style of fighting, into the fight scenes, which I think is really cool. Now, for the stunts in the movie, George Marshall Rouge was brought on as the stunt coordinator. George also was the stunt coordinator on Pirates 2 and 3, and he choreographed all the big action sequences for the movie. Since this movie was based on the Pirates of the Caribbean theme park attraction, Ted Elliott and Terry Rossio added many nods to the attraction in the script. Most notably are the parallels between Isla de Muerta and the Cursed Caverns at the beginning of the original attraction. And as Will and Jack row through the passages of the cave, Will sees a skeleton with a sword in his back, which is a copy of the skeleton on the ride with the sword in his back. So another major element of the ride that made it into the movie was the pirates attacking the town. This, of course, became the Black Pearl and its crew attacking Port Royal. And just like in the ride, the fort of the town fires back at the pirates, and there's also plenty of nods to the attraction that we see when Jack and Will arrive on Tortuga. So the redhead makes an appearance, who of course became Scarlet. There's also some references to the ride that were cut but are present in some of the deleted scenes. So these include like the man being dunked into the well, which goes back to the mayor being dunked into the well in the original ride. There's a woman chasing after the pirates in one of the deleted scenes, which also happens in the ride. There's also a pirate who's balancing on some barrels when Jack and Will first arrive in Tortuga, which kind of harkens back to the arsenal scene of the guy on the barrel. There's the pirates shooting each other, which harkens back to the arsenal scene. So there's just so many references that they put in. Of course, some of them end up getting cut, but it's really cool just to see all these references from the ride be in this movie. And of course, there's also Gibbs sleeping with the pigs, which is a direct comparison to the pirate laying with the pigs in the ride. And one of the most recognizable nods to the ride in the movie is the scene of the pirates in the jail trying to get the keys from the dog, which of course is one of the most iconic scenes in the ride. Jack and Elizabeth also sing the song Yo Ho, A Pirate's Life for Me in the movie, which is the song Exitentio created for the attraction. And if you want to learn more about the actual original attraction, you can go back and listen to the episode I did talking about the Disneyland attraction and how it was made. That was a very fun episode, so go back and check that one out if you have not already. So production finally wrapped on Pirates of the Caribbean, The Curse of the Black Pearl in March of 2003 and spent 14 weeks in post-production. Industrial Light and Magic finished their effects for the movie, and Klaus Badelt wrote the score for the film. Despite not being the main composer, Hans Zimmer did actually have a hand in the music for this film. Of course, he actually scored Pirates 2, 3, and 4, but he couldn't fully score the first movie because he was under contract for the film The Last Samurai. So he ended up writing many of the themes for the movie and then allowed Klaus Badelt to complete the full score and mix everything together. The music in this film is absolutely incredible, just like every Pirates movie, it's music. But there's a certain quality to the score in this specific movie that is so unique, and it's a feeling I don't know how to describe. It's such a good score. After the first test screening for the movie, Disney executives and the filmmakers got a reaction they did not expect. Nina Jacobson said, "The first preview was spectacular. That's when we knew when we went into the first screening. The second they saw the dog in the cell and started laughing, that's when we knew it was going to be more than a movie. It was going to be a cultural phenomenon." And Nina was right, because the movie premiered at Disneyland on June 28, 2003, and released to the public on July 9, 2003. It grossed $305 million domestically and $348 million internationally, making it Disney's most successful live-action movie ever at the time. And Johnny Depp's portrayal of Jack Sparrow got him an Academy Award nomination for Best Actor, as well as a Golden Globe nomination for Best Actor, and he also went on to win a Screen Actors Guild Award and MTV Movie Award for Best Actor. The success of Pirates of the Caribbean: The Curse of the Black Pearl gave Disney its first live-action franchise, and soon after, they greenlit not one, but 2 sequels that would end up being shot back-to-back. These movies, of course, became Dead Man's Chest and At World's End. Looking back on the franchise, spawned from this first movie 20 years later, it still holds up. And that's one of the reasons, one of the things they really wanted to do when they were making this movie. If you look back on behind-the-scenes stuff, Gore and the team, they wanted to make a movie that would hold up over time. It would be a generational movie that you could show to somebody years from now, and it would still look good. And they accomplished that so well, because this movie is timeless. It's utterly timeless, and that's why it's so good. It's one of those movies that has not aged a day, and you can still put it on and still feel immersed in it, especially 20 years after it came out. So I hope you enjoyed that segment about the production and the making of Curse of the Black Pearl. Now I want to get a little personal and tell you all about what this movie really means to me and how it has changed my life. First of all, this podcast would not exist without my love for Pirates of the Caribbean, so let's get that out of the way first. But I was just under a year old when Curse of the Black Pearl came out. So I don't think I actually saw it until around late 2005 or early 2006. I was still really young even at that time, being only 3 years old when I probably saw the first movie. And I wish I could remember specifics about that time, but the reality is that I don't remember much of those early days just because of how young I was, which sucks. But Pirates of the Caribbean has been the biggest influence on my life. And of course, when you're super young, you're very impressionable. And after seeing the first movie, that's when I fell in love with pirates. And I've been looking back at old pictures from when I was a kid, and just seeing the pirates craze begin is so fascinating. I think the first picture I found of me wearing a Pirates of the Caribbean shirt, I think it was early 2006. So I think that would probably be about when it began for me. But I also found pictures of my 4th birthday cake, which was a cake with Jack Sparrow and Will Turner on it. I was Jack Sparrow for Halloween in 2006, and at the end of 2007, my dad literally built a big pirate ship in our backyard for me and my brother. I'm not joking about this. So, this past month, I've been reflecting a lot on Pirates of the Caribbean, specifically Curse of the Black Pearl. And there's just this feeling that I get from this movie specifically that I can't describe. Each of the 3 Pirates of the Caribbean movies, the first 3 Pirates of the Caribbean movies, they each have a very specific vibe to me. But Curse of the Black Pearl has this feeling that I can't describe. It's just this feeling of the beginning of something that would become a phenomenon for 20 years. I just can't describe it. It's just some undescribable feeling that I get from this movie, and even the other 2 movies as well. They give me very different vibes for each movie, but the music in this film is very unique to this specific movie. the feeling of this movie. Like, everything is very unique to this movie. And there's just this crazy feeling that I get from it. Maybe it's some kind of form of nostalgia, but I just, like, whenever I watch this first movie specifically, I just get taken back to me as a young kid, like playing with my Pirates of the Caribbean Zizzle action figures, watching the movie, and then, acting the scenes out and sword fighting with my brother. Like, the ending of this movie is one of the moments that literally makes my life flash before my eyes. Like, when Will and Elizabeth kiss at the end of the movie, and the sweeping music starts and the camera pulls back, I'm brought back to an image of me as a kid sitting in front of my TV watching that exact scene. And then, of course, I went to Walt Disney World for the first time. When I went to Walt Disney World for the first time, I fell in love with the Pirates of the Caribbean attraction. It's my favorite ride at Disney. And, I've met Jack Sparrow in the Disney parks multiple times in my life. And, like, this franchise has just, it's always been there for me. Like, no matter what, no matter where I was in life, no matter how I was feeling, these movies were always there, and they've always been the thing I've loved the most. Pirates of the Caribbean can always put me in a good mood, like, no matter what. Like, if I'm feeling emotionally drained or stressed or anything, I watch Pirates of the Caribbean, and, like, everything is fine for 2.5 hours. And it's, everyone has their thing that they like, and my thing is Pirates of the Caribbean, and it's given me a lot of joy over these past 20 years, and I'm very, very thankful for that. But, Pirates of the Caribbean, it's made me love the ocean. It's made me love all things nautical. It's made me love sword fighting. It's made me interested in pirate history and history in general. One of my favorite parts of the movie is when Jack talks about what the Black Pearl represents to him, and that's freedom. And that has really inspired me in some ways to be free in my life. I don't really like sitting around. I like to travel. I want to travel more than I have, but, exploring new places and things, and of course I'm not sailing the seas, but I want to live life to the fullest like Jack. And so that's an aspect that really inspired me. And of course, the character of Will Turner is my favorite character of all time. He's really inspired me with Will's determination and his motives and his drive to, just overall, the character of Will is great. And Elizabeth has also affected me too. She's also one of my favorite characters of all time. And it's just these movies and these specific characters have become so ingrained in my human nature at this point that I don't know what it would be like to live without Pirates of the Caribbean. So it's just been a special piece of my life, and I'm just so grateful for every single person who worked on this movie and the rest of this franchise for just bringing me so much joy over these past 20 years. I truly don't know where I would be without Pirates of the Caribbean in my life. They set out to make something that was timeless, and they did that. And I'm just so happy that this exists. And I don't know where I would be without Pirates of the Caribbean. It's, pirates, of course, kids love pirates. And, being a kid when I first saw the first movie, it stuck with me. And instead of growing out of my pirate phase, I've grown into it more, which is kind of funny. But yeah, I truly don't know where my life would be right now if I didn't have Pirates of the Caribbean to rely on or think about, or, just watching the movies over and over and over again, quoting the entirety of the movie to everyone else's dismay. But yeah, I am truly thankful for Pirates of the Caribbean being in my life and being such a special piece and such a big part of my life. And I'm so, so thankful for everyone who worked on these movies, for giving us a franchise that I love with all of my heart, and I'll love forever. I'm never going to stop loving Pirates of the Caribbean at this point. It's been 20 years and I still love it, so it's never going to die out. So I'm just so incredibly thankful for Pirates of the Caribbean. But now I'm going to turn it over to you. So a few weeks ago, on my Instagram page, I asked the community how Pirates of the Caribbean has affected their lives, and I would like to share some of everyone's responses with you all. So let's go with the first response. So Grace or Not on Instagram, she messaged me with a great story about how Pirates of the Caribbean has impacted her life. So she said, "I have been the craziest fan of this movie ever since it came out. This is how it started. I lived in Berlin, Germany for the first part of my life. It was early 2004. Back then, Hollywood movies took a while until they were subbed and shown in Germany. But my mom and I always loved to go cycle in all the different little movie theaters and spend an evening watching a new movie. That evening we chose Pirates of the Caribbean, Curse of the Black Pearl. Little did I know that the evening would change the rest of my life forever. I was a 15-year-old teenager that at that time felt like an outcast, in love with things that were simply not cool, having had an accent that was made fun of, extremely aware of the social standards back then and everyone's expectations to perform correctly. I tried very hard to be liked among the kids and perform in school the way my parents wanted it from me, so that they would be proud. A normal teenage time, I suppose. So that evening in 2004, Mom and I sat in the movie theater and sailed across the Caribbean, meeting the wittiest pirate that everybody was falling for. The movie was over, we cycled home, and I felt changed. Everything suddenly felt different. There was a new energy inside me, a power of confidence, joy of life, and carefreeness. I wasn't sure what to do about it yet, or other than loving the motion picture so much, my room turned into a pirate cave. Everything else I had admired or been interested in vanished out of my sight. The new me had been shaped by Jack Sparrow. Within the next year, my family moved to Vienna, a town and community I felt even more unaccepted, even more of an outcast. But the new energy inside me had made me deal with it in a new way. My outside adapted and still tried to perform, as everyone expected from me as a kind person. My inside yearned for adventure, freedom, and exploration of new places. I started traveling, as first I needed to go to California. This was exactly when the second movie came out. Through a dear friend, I managed to get a ticket to secure the movie on Hollywood Boulevard Theater. The fandom had absolutely caught me. That pirate showed me that no matter how different or weird you are, you should always regard your own freedom and way you want to live as most important. I had learned to sail the world and search for what I wanted most. I traveled to many more places in the US, New Zealand, Canada, many European countries, and also Turkey. I was searching for my home, the place I would be able to be free, to be accepted among people. And she says that one of her favorite scenes in the movie is Jack rescued from the locker and goes to those people that just came to rescue him because they missed him, and simply be myself. So she says, I followed Jack's way of searching, always asking my heart what I wanted most, and found it. I found my home. My ship had anchored in a place I felt free, myself, and accepted. Jack Sparrow is a hero for me in that sense. The poster of him that I had purchased back in 2004 has traveled with me and is now hanging in my cave. So it's a beautiful story from Grace Renal on Instagram. We'll go to our next story, which is from Cinema Bloggrapher on Instagram. And they say, Pirates of the Caribbean is responsible for most of my identity. It was the first film I remember watching at the cinema and one of my earliest memories. I am a screenwriter, and if I never experienced the movie magic of pirates and felt that complete immersion into an exciting, fantastical world, I doubt that I'd be working in film today, and I strive to give that euphoric feeling to others through my craft. I'm now a 26-year-old rum fanatic and sea-obsessed scallywag with a Kraken tattoo on her leg. I have this magical franchise to thank for the quirky, happy life I lead today. Another fantastic story. And then we have another great message that was sent to me by Carolyn on Instagram. And she said that she was in 4th grade when the first Pirates of the Caribbean movie came out, and she instantly fell in love with the world of pirates. And she says, going to the movies was a really big deal for my family. We would go pretty frequently and consistently, and I was often heavily influenced by the movies that I watched, but this one just did something different. By 5th grade, all my notebooks and pencil boxes and folders were Pirates of the Caribbean themed. As a prepubescent girl, I of course fell in love with Johnny Depp too. My mom would drop me off early at school for book club, where we often had free time to use the computer lab, and most of that time I spent searching and learning all about Pirates of the Caribbean, making movies, and swooning over photos of young Johnny Depp. Through osmosis, I naturally became obsessed with Tim Burton and his movies too. Most of my childhood, I wanted to be a movie director and even started collecting movie stubs, watching all the behind the scenes that I possibly could, and doing lots of research. I'm sad to say that I did not go into the movie industry, but I did go into marketing, and hopefully that will lead me there someday. This all had a butterfly effect on my life as I traveled to Las Vegas to work for 1 year and stopped by to visit the Tim Burton art exhibit in 2019, and that is where I met my now boyfriend, hopefully husband someday, which ultimately led to me moving to Phoenix and the life I have now. And she also says that At World's End is the best one by far, which I definitely agree with. But thank you, Carolyn, for that great story as well. We also have some more comments on the post that I made, so let's go through those. So Lord Chakun says, it's absolutely insane how well these films still hold up. They're still just as incredible to me as they were when I was a little kid watching them over and over again. Honestly, Pirates of the Caribbean has genuinely given me so much joy over the years, and I have to thank it a lot for my artistic development. The fact that I even started to draw people at all was so that I could draw pirates, and I've since drawn them more times than I can count. I've used them as a springboard for all different types of writing projects, plus they really were my gateway into detailed character analysis. So much of my brain is taken up by pirates, and I love them dearly. It sounds silly, but I really do owe a lot of happiness and creativity to Pirates of the Caribbean. And Meryl Verolina, she said that Pirates of the Caribbean made me realize I wanted to be an actress when I first saw the behind-the-scenes material. Now, 10 years later, I'm studying acting in Rotterdam, and it's still my favorite movie. And Amy Caradad, she said she went to the movies with her dad when Dead Man's Chest was out, and it was the first Pirates movie I saw when I was 10 to 11 years old. I thought it would be a bit scary, but I absolutely fell in love, and when I got home, I told my mom about it, and she said we'd had Curse of the Black Pearl on DVD, and I dove into it and was absolutely fascinated by the behind-the-scenes special features. I fell in love with movies in general after that, and movie making, the wardrobe and makeup. I almost think I should have gone into that field, but music called to me. I have a sparrow tattoo on my back to represent pirates, and I named him Larry because, as Captain Jack said, pirates are an unimaginative lot when it comes to naming things. But another great story from Amy. Thank you so much. Then we have the Wholesome Pony. They said that I can't even explain how much they mean to me. I grew up with these movies and still listen to the theme music almost every day. Virginia Craft Textiles. She said, I dream of a home with Pirates of the Caribbean vibes, tropical and romantic. And you are not alone in that. I also would love that. The Black Pearl is one of my top 5 movies of all time. I could watch it over and over. And whenever we go for a family walk, we go off trail and yell adventure and sing the Pirates music. Good times. Sounds like a great way to spend family time. So thank you so much for sending that. Captain Sharkbait said, friends and I saw this in theaters. We loved it so much, and we tried to recreate the film in our friend's garage. Flash forward to 2016, my now husband and I got married aboard the Lady Washington, the same vessel that was used as the interceptor in Pirates of the Caribbean. And they say that it was a pirate wedding, and there was plenty of rum aboard, which, getting married on the Lady Washington is really, really cool. I can't even begin to describe how cool that would be. Noelle writes, she said, it's inspired my novel and given me a movie and place I can come back to whenever I feel down. Curse of the Black Pearl is the same age as me, so ever since I watched it for the first time, I felt connected to it. Lena the Chocolate Labrador said it was the first movie that me and my husband went to see together. We just got together a couple days earlier, so it was very special. I was 18 and he was 20. We were immediately addicted to the world, and said that they were already a fan of the ride at Disneyland Paris. So after 20 years, a franchise, a marriage, and a son, we still love to watch the movie together. Fond memories and nostalgia. Lil Mackie Cosplay, she said that my mom took me to see the film in theaters when I was 5, and I remember instantly gaining a crush on Will Turner that I still have to this day. I also loved Elizabeth and how she wasn't the damsel you expected her to be. I think they're both great role models for kids. Jack can be sometimes, but he lies so much. It's still one of my favorite movie series, and I'm planning on getting a tattoo that says Curiosity, which is one of my favorite lines between Elizabeth and Jack. Mel WK said that I have been a fan from the very beginning. I can't believe it's been 20 years. I will never forget the first time I saw a trailer for this movie as a 13-year-old in the theaters with the cursed pirates walking along the ocean floor. It was so epic. These were the first pirate movies I had ever seen, and it sparked my interest in all things pirates. I bought a lovely book called The Pirate's Pocketbook that documents real-life historical pirates and all their crazy adventures. Jack, Will, and Elizabeth, thank you for teaching me about friendship, adventure, and true love. Thank you so much. And then we have a story from Samantha. She said that my birthday is actually the day it was released in theaters, July 9th, 2003. This is my favorite movie, and when I found out Curse of the Black Pearl had the same birthday as me, it made it even more special. That is so awesome. Marissa Grinney, she said that the Curse of the Black Pearl 2-disc special edition inspired me to go into film and TV. Seeing what went into making such an awesome movie made me want to experience it too. 8th grade on, I told everyone I wanted to become a director. I went to film school and was able to live my dream working in film TV for the past 5 years. I even have the pirate medallion tattooed on my arm. Lady Writer 56 says that besides inspiring me creatively and introducing me to the vast acting talent of Johnny Depp, it brought me some very dear friends from all over North America that I never would have met otherwise. So that's also great to hear. Brian Breda 13 said it changed my life for the better, which I think we can all agree with. And then EJL 8494 said, I was 9 when The Curse of the Black Pearl came out, and it changed me. As much as I loved everything Captain Jack, Will and Elizabeth became my ultimate couple. I would even reenact their beautiful kissing scene with my dolls. They were everything. I watched the movie all the time. I bought the soundtrack as a preteen and would listen to it while doing homework to keep myself motivated. As a teenager, I began to collect toys throughout eBay. I didn't know they existed when the movies came out, but I so wished I would have. They made so many amazing things. Now I have a whole section of a room dedicated to my collection. I have some of the furniture from the now remodeled Pirates rooms from Walt Disney World's Caribbean Beach Resort, which my husband and I stayed in on our honeymoon because I'm such a big fan. Most of all, though, I watch the movie all the time, and I mean all the time. I often play it in the background while I clean or watch it to make a bad day better. This movie is everything to me. Thank you for sharing such a great story. Matteo Draw HC said that Pirates of the Caribbean made me meet my 2 best friends in kindergarten, and the first 3 films still have a special place in my heart. For the little anecdote, when I was little, me and my 2 friends had created a game with characters that we invented. I called mine Rigetti. So thank you for sharing. Kieran Crabtree said that these movies were my childhood and are still my favorite movies to this day. I had all the toys growing up. These movies for me were what Star Wars was for many. Brilliant movies that are surprisingly underappreciated. And they also went on to say, Pirates of the Caribbean literally influenced most of my life and influenced me to want to become an actor and a writer. M4 Nasari said that Jack plasmed my attitude towards life and towards problems, taught me to look at things with different perspectives, because that the impossible is often possible if you look at it the right way. You'll risk looking a little crazy, but you'll achieve great things. Thank you for sharing. Disneyland Bounty Hunter said that when I was 6 when Curse of the Black Pearl came out, but my love for the series didn't come until later, at World's End specifically. I started running a Pirates of the Caribbean focused Tumblr account in the early 2010s, mostly Norrington Navy Boys related, but still pirates, and thought that I gained a small group of internet friends. In my real life, I got a small group of really nerdy friends in high school, and we created a short-lived blog together where I was known as Christina Norrington and was known after in the group as the Pirates of the Caribbean Disney Obsessed One. At this point, I don't know who I would be without the series. I don't think I would want to know that person. Benjamin Janicki says that I still remember my reactions at 12 years old to every single moment of that film, seeing it for the first time. It permanently altered my taste in movies. I had never seen anything like it. I felt this is what a movie should be, and it became the gold standard by which I judge every movie since. Sonia J. Summers said, the first time I saw the film in theaters, it felt like an amusement park ride. Already being a Lord of the Rings fanatic at the time, it was vibrantly different and immersive in its own world and stood apart, fulfilling the pirate lore interest that I had as a kid. And then finally, JackLad2023 said, well, for me, I got the nickname Sparrow because of pirates. I used to wear a pirate skull bandana, had long hair, pretty chill guy, and loved Navy rum. The nickname stuck, and I grew to love the movies more as I continued to watch them. But thank you all for submitting your fantastic stories and telling me how much Pirates of the Caribbean has impacted your life and changed your life. So thank you so much once again for submitting all of those great, wonderful messages and stories. I loved reading them. It made me feel really great. So thank you so much once again for submitting those in. So that brings us to a close for our 20th anniversary Curse of the Black Pearl special episode. I hope you've all enjoyed this episode. It's been a lot of fun to make. And if you are listening to this between July 7th and July 20th, you can actually go see Curse of the Black Pearl in movie theaters right now. Disney announced this like last week. So if you're listening to this, this is going to be coming out on July 7th. If you're listening to this, you have 2 weeks to go see Curse of the Black Pearl in theaters. Unfortunately, it is only in the United States, which I know a lot of people have messaged me that it's not in, that it's only in the U.S. And I feel very bad that a lot of people around the world can't see this movie in theaters for this special promotion. But if you have the chance, if you're able to go to a theater to see Curse of the Black Pearl, please go see it. You can go look up times. If the movie theater near you is showing it, go see it. You know, I have been waiting my entire life to see this movie in movie theaters. So I am so excited that I can spend the 20th anniversary of this movie by seeing it in movie theaters for the first time. This is the movie I've always wanted to see in theaters, and I never ever thought I would get the chance to see this movie in theaters, but it's actually going to happen for me. I cannot wait. I'll share some more of that journey with you on the Instagram account and the Twitter account if you follow those platforms, which you should. But that wraps up this special celebration episode. I hope you've enjoyed. Learning a lot about the production of the movie, how it was made, all the stuff that went into it. And then I hope you also enjoyed hearing everyone's responses to how Pirates of the Caribbean has changed their life. This franchise has, it's given me a lot of joy in my life, and it will continue to keep giving me joy. Even if we don't get any more movies, even if we don't get anything else in the Pirates of the Caribbean franchise, this franchise will still live on for me forever, and it will always be the thing that I love most in the world. So I am forever thankful for Pirates of the Caribbean and for this first movie becoming such a cultural phenomenon that you would end up getting 4 more movies, and also book series and magazines and comics and toys and action figures and video games and so much stuff. And yeah, this franchise means a lot to me, as I know it means a lot to many of you who are listening. So thank you so much for listening to this episode. If you've enjoyed learning about the Curse of the Black Pearl, please consider leaving a rating or a review wherever you are listening to the podcast. It really helps the podcast get boosted up into the searches so people can find it easier. More people can find Pirates of the Caribbean podcast, especially if they are Pirates of the Caribbean fans. So thank you so much for listening. I hope you've had a good time on this episode. I have had a good time making it. I put a lot of work into all that research for that first half of this episode. So I hope you learned something new. If you didn't learn anything new and you've known all this stuff because you've watched behind the scenes content for 20 years, you're not alone in that park. But thank you so much. I hope you enjoy the 20th anniversary of the Curse of the Black Pearl, and I hope everyone continues to keep loving Pirates of the Caribbean, because it's not just a movie. What Pirates of the Caribbean is, what it really is freedom. So thank you so much for listening. I'll see you next time on Podcasts of the Caribbean.
The entire ocean, the entire world. Wherever we want to go, we go. That's what a ship is, It's not just a keel and a hull and a deck and sails. That's what a ship needs. But what a ship is, what the Black Pearl really is. is freedom.
Podcast of the Caribbean is in no way affiliated with Disney. If you want to send me an email or a question, you can send it over to podcastofthecaribbean@gmail.com. You can also follow this podcast on Twitter at podcastpotc and on Instagram at Podcast of the Caribbean. I post fun content and trivia over there. Make sure you go and check those platforms out. But be sure to keep a weather eye on the horizon, and always remember, dead men tell no tales, and happy 20th anniversary to Pirates of the Caribbean, The Curse of the Black Pearl. Here's to many more years of my favorite franchise.